Hello, this is Iris from Cashmere Goat in Camden, Maine, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the long tail provisional cast-on. This is, to my mind, one of the easiest ways to do a provisional cast-on for me personally, and there's plenty of ways out there, so if this one doesn't seem right for you, you can hit the YouTube and find out all sorts of other options. But if you know the long tail cast-on method, which a lot of folks do, this is a really simple way to do it. So why do we want a provisional cast-on anyway? Looking at this swatch, you can see I have one edge that is bound off and one edge that has the waste yarn and then some live stitches. You can see the white bumps are my live stitches. So the waste yarn is holding on to these live stitches essentially for me to deal with them later. So you might find this technique helpful. Let's say a pattern might have you do a provisional cast on at the neckline because you're going to come back and do something interesting with those stitches at the end to finish your sweater. So you would be casting on here, knitting down, your sweater body here. We're just pretending with this funny little swatch. And then at the end, coming back and then picking up these little white bumps, these live stitches, removing the waste yarn, and then just finishing up your neckline. Also, it could be super helpful in a bottom-up sweater where you're not quite sure how you might like to end up with the length of your sweater. So if we, in that example, think about this as our cast-on edge at our bottom of the body of the sweater, and then I'm knitting up towards my head, finishing the sweater up here, and then coming back down here to pick up these live stitches, and I could do like a really cool folded hem this way. That's sometimes really fun, has a nice finished look. I could also just, if I'm worried about like my length, let's say, I could just be knitting down this direction until the length I prefer. So that's why you do it. Okay, so how do we get this started? So I've got my main color yarn, that's my white, and I have my hot pink, that's my waste yarn. Now, with a provisional cast-on of any sort, I think it's very important to have a nice high contrast between your two yarns, just makes it easier down the road. I typically choose a yarn that is just a little bit lighter weight than my main color yarn. That's my method. So this long tail method starts with a slip knot, and then just going to insert my needle. The important part about this method, because if you're familiar with long tail, you know that you have a sort of slingshot move with your fingers in your left hand if you're holding your needle in your right. So I've got my tails kind of held around here, got my little slip knot, and then I have just gonna set myself up like this. The important thing is that you have your waste yarn on your thumb, your main color yarn on your pointer finger. And then I'm just gonna do long tail cast on basically like a champ. The other thing that's awesome about this is I don't have to try to estimate my number of stitches. I don't have to try to figure out how long my long tail is, which is annoying, and usually I fail at that game. So I'm just gonna cast on some stitches, and it's literally as easy as that. And I can see those little bumps are there, those live stitches. And so I'm just gonna come back in a second and show you what to do when you want to pick up those stitches again. But isn't this kind of slick and easy? Okay, so now I'm ready to pick up those stitches that were being held by my pink yarn. And I prefer to come picking up stitches from my right to my left, just feels more natural to me. You might be the opposite, doesn't really matter. You just have to pick up the stitches, and you know what, if you twist them on this row, it's okay. You can just untwist them on the next row. So you can see I'm trying to just pick up the white loops. I'm trying not to pick up any of my pink, but it is really this easy and, somewhat meditative. If you're doing a sweater, this might be like 300 stitches long. Just, settle in and enjoy yourself. Some folks like to cut away the waste yarn as they are going along, and I just prefer to do it at the end. Now, it's waste yarn, so we're not going to be fussed about maybe cutting it and not saving it. It's just waste yarn, okay? So this is what it looks like. Now, an important point is that I have actually 11 stitches across this needle, and I cast on 12. And this is really common with provisional cast on. And the reason is because when I initially did my provisional and was knitting this direction, my little like knit stitches are doing the little V thing, right? When I turn it around, those knit stitches are actually doing the mountain, the up, I can't make my fingers do that, but the upside down V. And so we're actually just short half of a stitch, but we need to pick up another stitch to make it work. And some folks will suggest that you can do a left leaning, a left lifted increase by like coming down and then just sort of picking up a stitch like essentially two rows below the one that's on your needle on the left side of that. So that's one option. It is going to be a little bit of a longer stitch. The other option is you can just work in that extra stitch anywhere you darn please. You know, you can in your first row just knit front and back into your first stitch and call it a day. So just do what sort of makes sense for your yarn, your pattern. Maybe there's a stitch pattern to consider. Trust yourself and maybe try one or two different ways. So now my last step here is just to remove the waste yarn, and you know, you can start by kind of picking it out of one end. It's, yes, a little bit fiddly, but that's why I said sometimes I just like will take my scissors when I'm feeling a little bit like, let's just move this party onward. So, you know, I might give it a snip here and just start picking out that pink, and it'll just come out at the end, and you'll just have your live stitches ready to knit this way. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you did find it helpful, let us know in the comments or give us a like. Don't forget to follow the Cashmere Goat channel here on YouTube. We also are on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find us online as well. And I'll drop all that into the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Happy making.